Yeah.
Okay. How do I know that this is working? Oh, it's showing there.
Yeah, exactly. So
Testing,
that's working.
testing,
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. Hi, and welcome to Now TV Canada. Welcome to Future Productions. I am Jennifer Cooley. My actual real name will get explained in this video or teleprompting session, which, by the way, is completely my first ever to do this. So bear with me. It is what it is. I am wearing my illustrious Superwoman t-shirt, as I am the writer of many superhero things and the creator of the Superwoman character. I will turn around and show you guys the back. And while I'm facing you guys on the back, you will see that it says the Instagram to the Smallville movie. So it's Instagram.com, the Smallville movie. I'm going to pull out my nice little guest here. I am not alone. I come bearing company. As many of you may know, Howie Mandel was a comedian and an actor in a previous life besides being a host of comedy shows today, like the for the stars, the acting professionals, the auditions, all that stuff. This is Bobby from Bobby's World. Say hi, Bobby. Hi, everybody. So, I use the name Jennifer Cooley as my pen name. It's like my career thing, like many other people have done. Like Randy Travis did 3 different names. My real name comes with a bit of aristocracy, some real background, is some documentary stuff going on there. And I just thought I'd make it on my own, or I'd like to make it on my own better, using my own wits and merits and skills than trying to shove a name around to get some fame. Now, that's coincidental to the Smallville movie, where in the movie, the character of young Jonathan Kent grew up to promise that he too wanted to make it on his own merits when he went to America, and the Smallville story begins when he arrives in Smallville. And so now in my story, we take a trip backwards in time, which takes me back to the United Kingdom, which will eventually connect to my true story around the name I was born as, not the name that I go by for pen name and for privacy. Now, for today, me and Bobby are going to attempt to do this teleprompting thing of reading pilot project for You've Got Mail 2, which I've actually titled Another Story with Joe Fox and Kathleen Kelly. It is not the Smallville movie that I'm reading today, because Canadian mail system needs help. Our postal workers need help. Communication breakdown is not good. I've sent stuff to the headquarters. I haven't heard back from anybody. I've also emailed the Premier of BC, and I invited him to be here for this today. I haven't heard back from him either. I have also emailed their local union, the pilot project, and then I made videos to show people that I have picked up all that material and that I'm not going to keep spending my own money to try and make a difference. So the whole point is I've tried reaching Justin to help Canada, to build a future, to give work to people, to support a country, a land and animals and nature and a way of life that I have loved. But if it's not working, then I'm going to have to leave and go travel, by plane and train and knock on doors, finding ways to reach other people, and Donald Trump would be one of them. So here we go with the Donald Trump portion. Do you want to tell them, or should I?
Well, it kind of goes around our story a little bit, so maybe I can say it. So in 2016, Jennifer finished writing a movie, a trilogy, for Supergirl 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, I'm not seeing this in the camera right. How do I stand? Where do I stand? Okay, I'm standing, but not straight. Okay, sorry. Now, the trilogy has Donald in it.
Okay, he's not working right. I'm nervous, we're nervous, and I'm standing. So, yeah, so Donald Trump is in the trilogy for Supergirl 2, 3, and 4 that I finished in 2016 before I started the Smallville movie. So by 2016, I had finished 4 full films, full manuscripts, and You've Got Mail 2 was one of them. And then it flowed over into extra material after that. And lots of people were still alive then, and I really wanted to work with all of those people. So I feel really upset that people have chosen to be not nice to me and not nice to Bobby.
Really not nice to me. They act like I'm Chucky, and I don't know who Chucky really is. I've heard of him, and apparently he's very popular, and people sort of are afraid of him. But I'm not Chucky. Don't be afraid of me just because I'm a wooden boy. I was in a cartoon called Bobby's World. I miss my family because they're still in cartoon. And where are you, Howie? You should come and rescue us.
So me and Bobby have traveled around Canada for 10 years. It started out in the Superwoman van. And then the van got vandalized, and I had met some really wonky, weird people through my times traveling around looking for good people and backup and help. And he couldn't go out in the rain too much. I tried to take him out, but the weather can be so bad here that it made it very difficult to do anything in public. Now, I'm not a professional, haven't been to ventriloquism school, so we just do this for fun. There's no scripts, which is why today I decided to do the pilot project through prompting, which we're going to get to right away, whether he helps me or not, because he doesn't seem to want to sit and look in the camera and sort of get it right, which is what I was hoping. I'll still read it to make a point of the fact that we are now down to the crunch. I need to do the best parts of this pilot project in the summertime here in Vancouver, and it has to be this year. Now, the time for Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan to be in it has since long passed, because I finished this when I was 38, back in 2013. I had written it in 2012 when Nora Ephron had passed away. In June, I had started it. And then I had finished it almost to the day 1 year when Jean Stapleton then passed away. So those two women have blessed me with the gift of being able to write that movie in 1 year. And all the actors and people I've contacted either refused to read anything, or don't even go check their own Facebook pages and emails and messages and stuff. So now we've got Donald Trump in the office, and Donald wouldn't be in the office if he had read the trilogy and we had been making those movies. All of these movies could have been post-production, including the Smallville movie, which is 5 years finished from its first draft. I finished it Canada Day, July 1st, 2020, in a room in the YMCA in Ottawa during COVID. So there's a lot of work, and there's been a lot of time lost, and now Robin Williams is gone. Man, I've lost Christopher Reeves, Margot Kidder, and now recently I've lost Phil Donahue as well. Now all I have left is Gene Hackman, and I can't handle that. I was also trying to work with Vin Diesel, Sylvester Stallone. I was also trying to reach Steven Seagal, Van Damme. Like, there's just a lot of things that when one thing goes wrong, sets off a snowball reaction of things. So I'm going to keep doing these until it hopefully leads to something that works in the right direction to make a peace between both sides of our countries, to allow us to have good times, smile, and make movies and be successful rather than competing. Let's just be friends, like family, and let's just work together for a better future rather than fighting, because war isn't the answer. Uniforms and weapons are not the answer. The pen is mightier than the sword. Scriptures and love, prayer is stronger than fighting and being like, the enemy. So we don't want that. We want good times. So I'm going to go and try and see if I can see this when I sit down. I'm going to put Bobby down for a second. In his chair, he's my guest, because I want to show you guys something. So this was one of the very first Superwoman t-shirts I ever made when I was in my 30s. Now I'm 50, to show you how much time has gone between the two countries and the communication that's going on. I'm just grateful that I had started my YouTube channel in 2011. So there's an entire documentary. There's over a decade of information there for somebody to come along and rescue in making a story around my true story. So I'm going to put my shirts up on eBay along with what's on eBay already, but you can see it's been well loved and tattered. I did give one to Patrick Brazo. I sent it to his father. I met his dad. I went there in person to try and find him, and I missed him. He wasn't there. So I never got to meet him in person. I tried a few times. And the other t-shirts are pink. I think only one of them is in perfect condition. This is wrinkled, but I think it's the perfect one. Whew. So it took me a long time to do the Superwoman symbol. And my goal had been to get in good enough shape around my health problems, hoping to recover from my health issues, to have been able to be the first one to put on the Superwoman costume, because I have made a Superwoman character. Now, the idea had been to get to the White House in the Superwoman van and get to the gates and have security look at the Superwoman van and say, oh my gosh, it's Superwoman, and see me wearing Superwoman outfit or t-shirt, and then call up to the president and say, sir, you're not going to believe this, but Superwoman's here at the gate. And then he comes out on the balcony with his binoculars, looks down. I'm waving from him to him, and I get out, and he sees me standing there, and he sees that it says Superwoman, and Superwoman, and he's like, well, don't just stand there, let her in. It's Superwoman, for crying out loud. So this is the other pink shirt. So unfortunately, when I went and met Tom Willing for the first time in person in 2019, something in his head didn't seem to understand that I wasn't wearing a t-shirt that said Superman. I didn't go there to get his autograph. I was there showcasing this t-shirt that I'm wearing now, Superwoman, and the name of the Instagram for the movie that I have written that I am the writer of. There are lots of details around the year 2016 and that person he was dating, the announcement of their relationship, that plays into my work and what it's done to hurt everybody's ability to have the work I'm trying to give everybody. I won't get into any of that. But for all those people on that TV show pretending that I don't exist because I don't have an agent or a publicist, or I'm not rich enough, I don't know persons that are in the right place, you know, the person you know to get the break you need or whatever, to treat somebody who's very, very nice and easy to get along with like they don't exist, and then to actually go on screen and go on tour and pretend like that doesn't actually exist, that it's not real, and that it hasn't been done, and that it's just being discussed, a possible option of doing something. This is actually a very good movie, and I'm not worried about it. He's a pretty good guy. I'm not going to fight or get angry or be resentful, any weird stuff like that. I'm not built to be like that. And I know that that's what adversary is like. That's what the haters do. That's what they want, problems and fights. Soon as he reads this, the first time he reads it, everything will be all right. Now, I'm not reading that today because that's not the point of today. Today is the point of the fact that I keep sending out letters. I'm writing stuff to people all the time in Canada, trying to find people that care about the country more than they care about putting themselves first and making a difference for us, so that someone like Donald Trump doesn't have to come in and rescue us or do something for us that nobody else in our country seems to want to do. So I've decided that I need to share some parts of that material with everybody here, and I will try to pick up Bobby. But this is what You've Got Mail 2, the pilot project, looks like. There is a meeting, the Vancouver Public Library, on the 29th of January, and I'm going to go there, about trying to become partners in producing this material in animation right here in these Inspiration Lab rooms in the library, which is why I'm using it today to try and sort of get used to how all of this works. So I'm going to sit down with this. If the prompter doesn't work for me, if I can't get the speed or the size right. So this is brand new for me. I'm going to sit in the chair here. All right. So welcome to You've Got Mail 2, Pilot Project and Saving Door-to-Door Mail. The writing is by me, my pen name, Jennifer Cooley. I think I did read the letter I sent to the president, the head office for the Postal, Canada Post. I'm not going to read the stuff I read on my YouTube channel already. I'm going to read just the letter I wrote to QP846 before I go on to turn this on and start to read that. So I would like to present a solution for the immediate wonderful outdoor movie making season ahead. I wish to see every single postal worker receive a copy of this pilot so that everyone can become familiar with the work. I wish to help the Canadian postal system stay in business and keep our workers protected, healthy, happy, working, and well paid. I would like to see everyone get the chance to also read the letters that I have already sent the Canadian Postal Headquarters and its board members in Ottawa. I have yet to hear from them, so this is where we need to stand in solidarity together everywhere the postal workers live and operate our centers and post offices. I wish to reach out to Helen Hunt and Christina Applegate because I'm willing to work with those two women to help join me in the project of making You've Got Mail 2, to join me on the project of the successful production of this movie work and its animation movie and audio work via radio, books, and more. Look at this. I'm just reading a letter that I see little mistakes in already to show you how badly I need my God Squad. So if you are needing work and want work, please get in touch with me because I have work to give you. So anyways, I go on to say, together we can buy back our country, pay off our own deficit and bills, and own ourselves again, and hold our heads up high once again, and move forward in knowing we have a future. And that's a great one that's ahead for us all. So having a future is a good thing. Henceforth, welcome to Future Productions. I was born here in Canada for a reason, and born to write, that which I now have accomplished. At that time and place, for when, where, and why is now. And I look forward to doing my part to make the difference that is needed for just as Justice steps down after the mess that he made over the 10 years in time to save us from the worries of the tariffs from Donald as he gets sworn in for his second term, which is now done. So I look forward to meeting with all of you soon to explain more about what I've briefly mentioned here now above. So the answer is, love, to get along peacefully. If Donald Trump was allowed to find out about the movie he's in, then he would be pretty happy to say, let's get to work making some movies so that we can pay off debts and make better countries for both of our countries. And then we wouldn't have to worry about any of those tariffs. Now, I'm looking forward to giving work in all forms of the industry, and the challenge of trying to make these animated movies through the Inspiration Labs in Vancouver with as little money as possible, to show that if you have the dream and you have the passion, you set your mind to it, you can do it. Okay, I don't know where this went. I have to find the beginning now. Okay. I got to bring the letters up. Saving door-to-door mail. Okay, if this prompter thing doesn't work, I'll use this. I don't know if I can pull up Bobby. We'll try to pull up Bobby. I don't know how you're supposed to do all this without help. You see, I need an intern. Anybody who wants the job? Sylvester, do you want to be my intern? They might get you some work. How about Sylvester produces the Supergirl trilogy? That'd be good. I had in mind to do Cliffhanger 2, Another Tango in Cash, and connect with his role in the movie series where he owns that security company, and they're paid to see what the weaknesses are in the hardest prisons for the worst criminals, which falls into my idea for what I had in mind for a story. And there's the most deadly highway in Canada, at least, that I wanted Vin Diesel to see. So there was lots of stuff that I would like to have seen get done by now. So we're going to try and do this. Does this say right? Can you see this, Bobby? Poof. It's a good thing somebody else gets to be the one to do all the editing and stuff. I don't have to do it alone. Okay, so I don't know if you can read that, Bobby. Can you read that better than I do? Okay. Whew. You've got Mail 2, Pilot Project and Saving Door-to-Door Mail, written by Jennifer Cooley. The Pilot Project and Saving Door-to-Door Mail. How do I increase this? Can this go up in speed? I call it Another Story with Joe Fox and Kathleen Kelly. What does that say? Can you read that? You've got Mail 2, 1 page, 1. Oh, I can't read it. It's too far from me. Okay, he can't read it. Okay. Brought to you by Future Productions. See if I could bring the letters up even more. All right. This might be too slow. Does anybody know how to speed this stuff up? All right. It's taken from, it's pages 47 to 71, taken from a finished manuscript that is 62,210 words at this point. It's 269 pages, the full manuscript. So Joe Fox received 2 books of poetry from an independent Canadian writer. And after reading both books and being very impressed by her work, thought the idea of going to meet with her in person might be something he should like to do. This is going really slow, and I don't know how to speed it up. Because he really liked her work and how she drew the reader in to make them feel what it's like to actually be there at the place and time in her pieces. He also thought it would be a good way to check out his Canadian competitors, to see what their target what their large bookstores look like, and whether they offer coffee and poetry readings like his does in New York. I'm going to have to find out how to do this faster. He looked forward to hearing this young woman reading her work for listeners who stop into his poetry corner, but thought for safe measure, because she was an independent writer, that meeting with her first would be a good idea. It's said on the back of the books that there was 3. I don't know how you guys do this. How do professionals read from prompters? I'm failing miserable at this. 3 books in the set, but he only received 2. So the third one Joe assumed wasn't in print yet. With that thought, maybe he could be the one to back the publishing of her third one. It looked to be the size of something Fox Books could handle. Supporting. This could only help with her transition of coming to America, making a much easier and a lot more comfortable financially, making it. Poetry, though well liked and loved by readers, isn't easy to make a living at. Oh boy. He, however, believed this young woman had what it took to do it.
Okay, this is not working. We're going to shut this off. Okay, now go get the book. This is just not working. Go get the book. Okay, open the book.
He's telling me to open the book. The teleprompter's not working. Okay, that took, I don't even know how many minutes to read just the introduction. But I'll show you what the introduction looks like. It's just a little piece like that. It's like learning how to read from the beginning. And I tried pushing all the buttons and I couldn't get it to go.
So now we're going to read from the sample pages that we have here. The crab meat is wonderful too. This really has turned out to be a wonderful day.
That's what Kathleen said, right? Joe says, it sure has, my dear. It most certainly has been a great day. I am so glad you suggested we start our holiday off by coming to the island and doing this. So they're talking about Vancouver Island, Victoria. Kathleen reached across the table and smiling grabbed Joe's hand, and he smiled back.
Back at the hotel, as per what Joe said, Brinkley made sure they knew that he had been missing from the day's adventure. He insisted on a nice long walk so he could unwind all his dog energy. Kathleen graciously bowed out of the walk and said she was going to have a bubble bath because her feet were killing her, so Joe and Brinkley found themselves on their own. Before getting to the part of the park where Brinkley could be let off his leash, Joe noticed a bus stop that had a bench at it, and on the bench was this stack of envelopes. He went closer and saw that they were all tied together nicely with string. He picked them up and looked around, but didn't see anyone on either side of him or near the bus stop. Holding the nicely tied together stack of envelopes, Joe looks at the top one and sees that it's addressed and stamped. But when he looked in the corner at the return address, all he read was a name. There was no address written. Your turn.
So Joe goes on to say, this should pose to be a bit of a challenge, Brinkley. Only a name and no address. But a name is better than nothing. So I guess I will bring them with usual and deal with it when we get back to Kathleen in our hotel room. Carrying the package carefully, Joe finished his walk with Brinkley to the open section of the beach and unleashed Brinkley and let him go. Sat on a bench nearby and went back to re-examining the envelopes. Do you want to keep going or do you want me to go?
Okay, I'll read one more section. Back in the hotel room, Kathleen, out of the tub and all nicely wrapped in her housecoat, smiled at Joe and Brinkley as they entered the room. Kathleen, the phone call came, Joe, from the townhouse we rented. It has finally been cleaned up, and we are all clear to move in for the duration of our holiday here in Vancouver. Isn't that great news? We don't have to pay for another night's stay here. Although it has been a pleasant experience, this is a nice hotel.
gotta turn the page. See what I mean by having two hands? It's like an octopus. Can't do it. So we turn the page, and Joe goes on to say, that is great news, Kathleen. I mean, for Brinkley's sake, I just thought it would be much more comfortable for him if he had the same freedom as though we were at home. This way, we don't have to worry about him or leave him with babysitters when we go out. Kathleen says, well, I just think having our own personal place to live is much more quaint and personal and gives one the feeling of what it's like to be living here like one of the locals. I think hotels were more meant for shorter vacations, not long ones like ours. So renting a townhouse to me seemed like the most logical thing to do. And I personally am looking forward to finishing out the rest of our vacation in the townhouse. And Joe says, yes, agreed, Kathleen, but on condition of one thing. Well, we are in there for the duration of our holiday. What's that, Joe? Joe says that we never speak about what happened in the house just before we arrived. Kathleen says, oh yeah, the wake. I guess it would be best not to think about the death of someone in a house we are trying to enjoy our vacation in now, isn't it? So yes, I agree that this should be the last time we speak of the sad incident, though I do wish that family the best and hope all is well for that family, for them, is what she's saying. I am sure things are fine, Joe says, but to change the subject, it is now my turn to have a bath because, like you, my feet, too, are killing me. I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight. They did a lot of walking, I guess, when they were in Victoria. Kathleen, chuckling, said, yes, me too. All that fresh air will certainly guarantee us a sound sleep tonight as long as we don't think about the doors or the possibility of any fire alarm going off. She laughed hard as Joe went to take his bath, who was looking at her with the expression that wasn't funny, not right before bed. Okay, I'm going to put him down. I need staff. I need producers. I need directors. I need artists, animators. Okay. All right, I'm going to go to a recording room and do this from a recording room and then try to get it to the radio stations because I think doing the radio stations is probably a better idea than this. But here, I'm going to go back to reading. Next day, Kathleen, sitting at the desk looking at the envelopes, looks up at Joe, who was playing tug-of-war with Brinkley, and says, well, I think we should mail them. I mean, she addressed them all to this Josh guy, and each one is stamped, so obviously I think it was her intention to send them off. And Joe says, but there's no return address in the corner of the envelope with her name, so I'm not so sure if she was ready to mail them yet. Kathleen says, let's see if I can fix that. Pulling open the top drawer of the desk she was sitting at, she looked for the Vancouver phone book. Seeing that it was sitting right there, she pulled it out and put it on the desk in front of her and looked at the name on the corner of the envelope and then turned back to the phone book and opened it and started looking for the name. So this movie was written when I was 38, finished in 38. So I'm 50 now. So there were still phone books around, and often people will keep the last copy they ever have still in desk drawers or near their phone tables, especially if they're renting out Airbnbs and stuff. So if people are wondering about phone books, yeah, that's it. So Kathleen goes on to say, Gwen Lewis can't be too many of those around. But after looking through all the Lewises listed, she came up empty-handed. No Gwen listed. There are a couple of G. Lewises, but no Gwen should I call them? Joe says, can it wait until we get settled into the townhouse? We are all packed and ready to go, and I'd like to get there and get in so we can finally get started on having the rest of our vacation. And Kathleen says, but what if there isn't a phone book there? I mean, you know how everything is on the internet now these days. Look, I can't even open the pages. I'm having that much trouble. Look. Okay, Joe says, fine. How about this for a compromise? You write the numbers. You see they're down and bring them with us. So so she's being told to write them down and bring them with them. You can call them when we get there, because I think returning the letters to the letter writer would be the better thing to do. So he thinks if we could find her, then we should take them to her. And then she says, well, I think life is like an adventure, and sometimes one has to take risks in life to have those adventures happen. And I believe this Gwen Lewis was intending on sending them, but that maybe she hadn't finished filling out the information on the envelopes. Anyway, let me just get these numbers written down, and then we can be on our way. So she took a suggestion, and that's what they did. Joe said, okay, great. End scene. Once settled in at the townhouse, Joe and Kathleen went back to discussing the mysterious envelopes. Kathleen says, I wonder what this Josh Rhodes is like. Oh, I bet he's sweet and romantic and probably young and very good looking. And Joe says, oh, Kathleen, you are such a romantic at heart. How can you surmise all of that just from writing on these envelopes? He smiles. Kathleen says, it's just a hunch. Gwen's handwriting is so dainty and clean, pretty and neat. She comes across as a very organized and orderly person, and I bet she too is young and beautiful with the whole world in her hand. And Joe says, next I guess you'll be wondering if they are two successful people dying desperately for each other's love, being so many miles apart. And Kathleen says, well, what if it's true? Kathleen retorts with a smile and tilts her head slightly to her side. Joe says, well, let's just stay focused on doing the right thing here and start with making those phone calls. How many numbers do you have to call? And Kathleen says, not that many, only about 6. So Joe says, well, I'll help you. Give me some of the numbers and I'll call some from my phone while you are doing the same. Kathleen told Joe a few of the numbers and then turned around and picked up the landline and phoned one of the other numbers. After 45 minutes of talking with or leaving messages with these 6 strangers, they both hung up their phones at almost the exact same time and turned to each other. Joe, looking at Kathleen, didn't have to ask how her efforts went. Joe said, well, I guess I don't have to ask if you had any success on your end. Looks like we both came up with the same results. No leads. The question is, now what? Kathleen says, well, there is still a glimmer of hope, waiting to hear back from anyone we left messages with. But alas, my conclusion is the same as it was when it started, and that is to mail them. Joe says, well, if we can't return them to return them, my dear, then I am starting to lean towards thinking you might be right. I mean, we can't throw them away, and we can't keep them. And I'm sure that gentleman Josh, you said his name was, would probably enjoy receiving them. I mean, there are so many of them that in itself is a romantic gesture. Kathleen said, I absolutely agree. I got goosebumps just thinking about how I'd feel receiving a big, pretty stack of letters like this. How exciting, wondering what's inside each one, wanting to tear open all of them and read them all at once. But wait, Kathleen, Joe says, what if it's not good news? What if she went to all this trouble to tell this poor guy some kind of bad news, carefully thought out over a period of time, explaining why they never got sent? Kathleen says, oh, Joe, you would have to be the pessimist in this situation. But really think about it. How many letters does it take to tell bad news to somebody? If it's bad news, when have you ever heard of someone needing to write 24 letters to tell someone bad news? And Joe says, okay, you're probably right, Kathleen. But someone has to be looking at all of the scenarios. And all I am saying is just, well, what if? Just then, Kathleen was going to give Joe a reply. The phone rings, so she turns her attention to it, gives Joe that just a minute finger look, and then promptly answers the call. And after a few minutes have passed, the call ends, and Joe pipes up with, well, is it good news or bad news? I couldn't tell by the length of the call. And Kathleen says, you are right, it was one of the Lewises, but unfortunately not one with any direct relation to Gwen. So I'm afraid we are going to have to make this decision on our own. So she got a call back from the calls they made, but it wasn't somebody related to the girl whose name is on the corner of the envelopes. Joe says, well, why don't we take Brinkley and the letters and go for a walk? see the neighborhood, and maybe find some place where we can, let's say, stop for an ice cream. I don't want to waste this beautiful weather, for as we know, Vancouver has a reputation for raining a lot. And so far, we've not had to witness this saturation. Kathleen says, agreed. I'd love to go for an ice cream, and Brinkley can never have enough walks. Joe says, I'll get Brinkley and his leash. You grab whatever you need and the letters, and we'll meet you out front. Kathleen says, okay, Joe, sounds like a plan. A few minutes passed, and just as he had said, Joe and Brinkley were waiting for Kathleen as she opened the door to the townhouse and ventured outside to join them with a stack of letters in hand. Kathleen says, look at this beautiful weather. We really should take advantage of it while we are ahead. And Joe says, Brinkley and I totally agree, my dear. Shall we? Joe puts out his arm for Kathleen to take as she comes down the stairs and joins them on the sidewalk. The walk to English Bay was very nice. Joe pointed out the direction in which the bus bench was that he found the envelopes on before refocusing on the beautiful ocean and beach walk. So he would have been pointing that way. In front of them, Kathleen says, oh, look, Joe. Kathleen points to a street performer. Oh, Joe says, that looks like it would be fun to watch. Shall we? Don't see much of this kind in New York City. Kathleen says, of course not. I mean, where exactly would they do it? We don't have a beautiful ocean front like this back home. Our water is completely polluted up at the shoreline. Joe says, I guess that's what taking vacations are for, so we can see what other beautiful things there are in the world to see. Well, Kathleen says, quite right, Joe. You're quite right about that. The street performer was very entertaining. He swallowed sticks of flame and escaped from chains and straitjacket. It was apparent that the performer came from Europe with his strong accent. How nice they got to watch a show from abroad while being abroad themselves. Joe said, okay, that's it. I can't stand it anymore. Kathleen says, what? You can't stand what? And Joe says, the smell of the hot dogs over there at the vendor on the street. I have to have one. You up for a hot dog? Kathleen says, I guess being on vacation is as good as any excuse as to not concern myself with what's in a hot dog or my weight. They sure do smell good, so yes, let's have one. And I think I heard someone else say that if we keep walking through the park that we'll find ice cream too. Joe said, sorry, Brinkley, all I can give you is some of the bun. Brinkley was happily sniffing away at the ground and noting the other dogs in the park when Joe said that. Ordering up 2 hot dogs, they both topped theirs with cheese, mayo, mustard, and relish together and devoured their dogs. Ha ha. Kathleen says, you had the same thought I did. Huh, Joe? Passing on the hot peppers and the sauerkraut. Joe says, who needs to put that on a hot dog? And I don't want to be wishing for antacids or a glass of Eno the rest of the afternoon. Kathleen says, me either, Joe. Guess we're not as young and brave as we used to be when having hot dogs at the vendor meant everything goes. After finishing their hot dogs, they took Brinkley down to the beach, let him off leash, and decided themselves to take their shoes and socks off and enjoy the water and warm sand on their feet. And scene. Sometimes later in the day, much further down the walk known as English Bay, Joe says, look, Kathleen, across the street, there's a gelati shop. Over there, there is an ice cream truck. Aren't we in luck? Take your pick. Kathleen says, gelati. Oh, a dipped ice cream cone. Both are making my mouth water. I don't know which one to pick. Joe says, well, you can't take too long to decide or the ice cream truck might make the decision for you. He smiled with a smile. Kathleen says, okay, you convinced me. The ice cream truck is it. We can always come back for gelati on another day, but we may not find another ice cream truck. Joe says, guess we just lucked it out at the right time of day. Together, they walked to the ice cream truck, ordered their desire, and walked on when Kathleen stopped, suddenly because she noticed something. Joe said, what is it, Kathleen? He looked in the direction she was looking at and went, oh, upon seeing what she saw. Kathleen says, yep, Joe, I think the time has come to make our decision. The day has been nice to us, but now we should decide whether or not we are going to do the same thing. She held up the stack of envelopes as they both looked at the mailbox about 50 feet in front of them on the other side of the street. 50 feet later, they found themselves standing there next to the mailbox, looking at each other, Brinkley and the envelopes. Well, I guess you've convinced me, Kathleen, and I guess there is no time like the present. Shall we? He opens the mailbox for Kathleen. She carefully places the stack of envelopes on the drop slop and said, "Okay, Joe, deep breath." They both breathe in. "Let it go." Joe closed the mailbox and both of them listened to the sound of the stack of letters drop to the bottom of the box. Thunk. Joe says, "I sure hope we made the right decision, Kathleen." Kathleen says, "Well, Joe, we can both agree that a decision had to be made. And I rather like this one. I think it's much more romantic than never seeing whatever is in all those nicely written and strung together letters reaching the recipient they are addressed to. I think that would have been a far sadder ending because without them being mailed, there really wouldn't be an ending. You know, Kathleen, I think you missed your calling. You should have been a romance novelist instead of children's storyteller and bookshop owner." "Thanks, Joe." On that note, they took each other by the hand and went about finishing their day's adventure together. So the mailbox shot I use, let's see if I can get it there. There, can you see that? It's an empty mailbox with its mouth open. So that was my inspiration for the mailbox. They put the letters in, and so the mail guy will open it up and pull them out of the mailbox like that, right? A couple of days have passed, and the stacked and nicely strung together envelopes have made their way to the main Vancouver postal outlet, where they were being sorted and ready to be shipped out when one of the postal workers stood there stumped, not knowing what to do about the stack. She looked to either side of her where others were working away at their job and then back at the stack. Something inside of her, looking at the nicely tied bow on the top of the envelopes, left her without being able to undo the string and separate all the letters and ship them out as single letters. So she decided to take an early coffee break and walk the nice stack of letters over to the truck they would be going out on in person in hopes that she could keep them all together. Something inside her just decided that it was too pretty to take apart. The postal worker says, "Hey, Jerry, I have something here I'd like you to take special care of for me." Jerry, looking over in her direction, said, "Sure, Anne, what would you like me to do for you? You know it would give me pleasure to help you in whatever way I can." And Anne says, "Thanks, Jerry. I was working away in the mill this morning when this special package of well cared for stack of letters found their way in front of me. And well, I know protocol calls for separating the letters and sending them out individually. But I just didn't have the heart to bring myself to do it. Something inside just told me by how pretty the handwriting is and the nice bow on top that these letters need to be kept together to make it to the gentleman they're addressed to on the envelopes." And Jerry says, "Well, Anne, let me just see these letters for myself." And Anne says, "Here you go." She handed Jerry the stack of envelopes. "It just seems to me that sometimes rules just have to be bent a little, and I see no harm in it in this case." Jerry, looking over the stack, looked at Anne and replied, "Yes, Anne, I think you are right. Sometimes we have to take chances in life and make choices outside the rules. And if you feel that strongly about it, then I can't see how keeping this little bundle together should do any harm as they pass through our wonderful Canadian postal system." Anne says, "Thanks, Jerry. I owe you. I'll buy you a coffee or something one of these days." She turned and walked away. Jerry took the envelopes and brought them to the front of his truck and sat them nicely on the passenger seat, deciding that he would personally see to it that they get on the plane together. Outside of that, it would be out of his hands. All he could do is hope when he take it to the airplane. So that was the end scene of the envelopes leaving Vancouver to go to the airport in the airplane. Later at the airport, When Jerry arrived, he got out of his van and unloaded the mail, heading for the plane that's taking his mail to Winnipeg. Once he was done unloading the bags, I'm going to cry. Sorry. It's taken a long time to do something good that could take me back to a place that I need to go back to deal with stuff there. Just hang on. Okay, I'm going to get through this. Okay, so the airplane taking the mail to Winnipeg. Once he was done unloading the bags, he went to the front of the mail van and grabbed the stack of envelopes on the passenger side of his van and closed the door. He took the stack and walked over to the familiar face of the pilot he's used to seeing. For the many years they've worked together transporting mail everywhere that mail goes. Jerry says, "Hey, buddy, I got a favor to ask you. I have something I need you to take special attention to. It's a special delivery." He smiled at Buddy, the pilot of the plane these letters are set to go out on. Buddy says, "Hey, Jerry, sure, what can I do for you?" "Well, can you see to it that this special stack of letters stays tied together and makes it to Winnipeg that way?" Jerry hands Buddy the letters. Buddy says, "Well, that shouldn't be too hard to do. I don't see why this special request can't just join me and my co-pilot in the cockpit for the flight, where I can pass them on to the postal worker at the other end." He shook hands with Jerry, who said thank you. Jerry said, "Sometimes rules need to be bent a little. Gives life a certain sense of romance that we can never have enough of in our lives. At least that's what I think." He waved bye to Buddy and went back to his mail van, got it started up, and drove away. Buddy looked at the stack of envelopes and thought that the nicely tied bow on top looked so sweet that it put a bit of pep into his step as he walked to the plane and got on. Once in the cockpit and situated in his seat, he looked for a safe place to put the letters and conveyed the special request to his co-pilot, who witnessed it take place from the plane. Co-pilot says, "Well, I think that's a nice sentiment, and we certainly have the room for them to ride along with us up here in the front." And Buddy says, "We certainly do. It feels good to do good things for others. And I'm expecting with that many letters, it's got to be good news." So they all agree with Kathleen that it's got to be good. The co-pilot says, "I should think so. And it's a very nice bow. Who should have the heart to pull that string? That's clearly the job for the receiver of these letters." Buddy, the pilot, snapped himself into his seat, looked at his partner and said, "You ready?" And the co-pilot says, "Whenever you are." His hands in place for the flight, and then looking back to the window with an "it's a beautiful day" look on his face as the pilot began to take the plane to the runway. So they have their hands on their wheels. I don't even know what you call those. It's not a wheel on the front of an airplane. They're just two little handles, right? Driving the plane and all the buttons. So end scene. A little over 2 hours later, the plane touches down in Winnipeg and starts slowing down as it's driven up the runway to the depot. When the plane stops, the hatches to remove the mail open and the unloading begins. The pilot unbuckles himself, gets out of his seat, and before leaving the cockpit, grabs the stack of letters. The co-pilot remarks on how he hopes everything works out with the letters. The pilot says, "Well, if I have any say about it, they'll reach their destiny." He smiles as he continues with the mission at hand as he heads to the pilot's hatch before he opens and then climbs off the plane. Once he arrived inside the depot, he looked for somebody that looked like they might be important. The pilot says, "Your tag says floor manager. You should do the trick." The postal manager says, "Yes, I am the floor manager. What can I do for you?" The pilot says, "This." He lifts the carefully packaged, now seemingly important stack of letters I would like to make a special request that you do your utmost best to keep these letters together until they reach the recipient they are addressed to here in Winnipeg. Okay, I'm going to cry again. Ah, zen. In through the nose and out through the mouth. We're good. The postal manager says, well, seeing as how they made it this far intact, I can probably honor that request. What's so important about them? The pilot says, I don't know. I didn't write them. But let's just call it a hunch. With the effort the sender went to keep them together, that they must have something important in them. Besides, it's such a pretty bow. Would you want to be the one to undo the string? The pilot smiled at the postal manager, waiting for a reply. Looking at the nicely tied bow on the stack, the postal manager looked at the pilot and said, No, you are right. That is a nicely tied bow. Whoever did it went to a lot of trouble to get it so perfect. I'd hate to be the one to mess with a destiny like this one. I will make it my priority to see to it that these letters make it to the right letter carrier so that they reach their final destination altogether. Pilot says, thanks ever so much, and I really do hope whatever is so important in them that it took so many letters to write has a happy ending for the sender and the recipient. And the postal manager says, well, it will sure leave all of us that got these letters here together thus far wondering. That's for sure. I'll definitely agree with that. The pilot says, agreed. The pilot shook hands with the postal manager and thanked her and turned and went to meet up with his co-pilot. The postal manager flicked through all the envelopes like a deck of cards nicely with her thumb and thought, because she was thinking about how much she'd like to get a gift like this in the mail in this day and age of high-speed internet. There's just something much more personal about getting handwritten letters that one just doesn't see enough of anymore. Noting the time of delivery, the postal manager for the floor that day decided that the letters being delivered to the carrier will have to wait until after lunch. So she opened a cupboard at her standing post, put the envelope safely inside and closed the door, locked it and went for her lunch. 1 o'clock rolled around when the manager returned to her site, where she stood at her post and looked around at the floor waiting for all the staff to return to theirs. Opening the cupboard door, she thought, knowing the address would be a good idea so she could figure out which carrier the stack would need to go out with. After discovering the answer to Josh Rhodes' address, she promptly looked in the direction of the dock she needed to proceed to and closed the cupboard and headed with the letters in hand toward that direction. Sorry, you guys, I'm still trying to choke back tears. Okay, that's coming. I'll explain. Postal manager says, hey, Larry. And Larry says, yes. Oh, I lost my page. Larry says, yes. Postal manager says, you've got mail. Larry says, you're not kidding, because he's a postal worker. Lots of mail to deliver. Postal manager says, no. I mean this mail. Special delivery. She shows him the carefully stacked letters and tells him the story. Larry says, well, sounds like these letters have already been on some kind of trip, and I guess I hadn't better interfere with that luck. Taking the strung stack from the manager, he gave his word to keep with the tradition of the letters' luck so far, telling her that they were in good hands and would certainly make it to their final destination, the same way he received them. The postal manager said, thanks, Larry. I trust that you will see to it they will find their owner. She waved goodbye to Larry and went back to her post. Like the first postal worker in Vancouver did, Larry decided that the letters, so not to be ruined from perfect form, should not ride along in a mailbag, but once again find themselves with a lucky seat up front, from front in his truck with him in the chair next to him. Well, it looks like you guys are a lucky bunch of letters, Larry says to the letters. He's talking to them as he's in his truck. Who knows how long it would have taken the receiver to get all of you guys, and what order he would have had to read them in if somebody had taken them apart, if undone the string and sent them out one at a time, right? That said, Larry closed the door, went to the back of his truck and closed the door, snapped it shut, and then walked around to the driver's side of his box and checked his mailbag, that it was secure and in place. Then he opened his driver door, got up in his seat, shut the door, put his seatbelt on, and checked his mirrors. When that was done, he looked straight ahead and turned the key in the ignition, pulled away from the depot. The carrier followed his regular routine. He filled his mailbag and set it in place and went on his way. After emptying and filling his bag about 3 times, it was finally time to do the apartment blocks. He did one building at a time until he got around to the 3rd one, where upon opening the mailbox, he was quickly reminded of the fact that he had a special delivery to make at this location. He emptied out his mailbag, 1 box at a time, till all the mail there was delivered. He closed the boxes and turned the key to lock them back into place. Then he left the building and walked to where his truck was. Once back at his truck's location, he wasted no time retrieving the special stack of letters from where he had safely placed them. Postal carrier, well, here we go. I just hope whatever it is that I am delivering comes with a happy ending. Holding letters in hand, he locked the passenger door and shut it. Guess there is no time like the present. That's what he said to himself as he happily carried the stack of letters back to the 3rd building on his regular mail routine in this neighborhood. Opened the door and stepped inside and let the door shut behind him. He then looked at the apartment number on the top of the envelope and took a deep breath and headed for the stairs and the climb up. The carrier got to the top of the 1st flight of stairs, stopped briefly, turned toward the climb of the 2nd flight, looked up, started his climb. At the top of the 2nd flight, he secured his landing and double-checked the apartment number he was looking for, number 18. He put his foot out, started his walk down the hall, looking at the door numbers until he reached number 18, where he stopped in front of the door. Without wasting any more time, he knocked on the door and waited. I guess you can't really hear my knock. Okay. On the inside of the apartment, a tall young man with dark hair and dark eyes with a pleasant face was puttering around in his kitchen. When he heard the knock at the door, he stopped what he was doing and proceeded to answer it. Once at the door, he answered it with a smile and pleasant greeting. Josh says, "Hello, Mr. Mailman, how can I help you?" And the postal carrier says, "You got that wrong, sir. It's not what you can do for me, it's what I can do for you. I didn't know what else to do. You see, what I came here to deliver today wouldn't fit in your mailbox. So it occurred to me that it would require personal delivery." And Josh says, "Thank you." Josh stopped mid-sentence looking for a name tag to address the postal worker by name, but he couldn't find one. A postal carrier says, "Name's John, if that's what you were looking for, sir." And Josh says, "Thanks, John." Josh was looking for that. Postal carrier says, "No problem. Well, guess there is no sense in postponing the inevitable. Here you go, sir. And I hope whatever is in the special delivery turns out to be nothing but a pleasant ending for you, sir." The postal carrier puts up his hand holding the nice package of letters and says, "Well, it seems, my young fella, that there is no other way to say this to you except, sir, that you've got mail." He hands the stack of letters over to Josh, who received the letters graciously. Then the postal carrier nodded his head and said goodbye with a smile and walked away to finish the rest of his day's duties. Meanwhile, Josh shut the door and found himself standing inside his apartment, holding this beautiful, strung together, neatly written out stack of envelopes, evidently all made out to him, and just thought of the postal carrier's last words before he walked away from the door. "So you've got mail." Indeed, he did, he thought to himself with a chuckle, as he took the mail with him and walked over to the couch, where he sat down with them and said again, "You've got mail." So I've got mail. He got mail. So he's got mail. We've got mail. You've got mail. So that's the end of that scene. Now, next scene, a week has passed and the phone rings at the townhouse. Kathleen gets out of the chair she was sitting in. where she was reading a book and goes to answer it. Kathleen says, hello? And the caller says, yes, hello. I'm sorry I'm calling back so late, but I was out of town, so I didn't get my messages until last night. But are you the lady that phoned to ask me about someone named Gwen? End of pilot. To be continued. So that is the state of emergency we're in. I need to get this movie started this season in Vancouver. And I need everybody that wants work to get in touch with Future Productions. You can email futureproductions.online@gmail.com. You can go to futureproductionsonline.com, the website. You can keep tuning into youtube.com/IamJustJen. So we can get this out to the postal workers, the unions, to get together and work on helping everyone make money, delivering this mail from Vancouver to Winnipeg. The guy in the story is not a real guy who lives in Winnipeg, but I do have a history. I do have a story of my life in Winnipeg. There is some good and bad. Winter, ice skating outdoors. My stepdad are all good parts of that. The Josh character is just about everybody always looking for the right person to love, perfect person to love. And then you just keep doing what you got to do, traveling and going anywhere to find it. And whether you find it or not, you still have to use that an inspiration, to fulfill other destinies and parts of your life, whether that part gets fulfilled or not. So Josh was originally from a stack of envelopes in real life that I had written many, many years ago. I was trying to pour my heart out and just do some recovery stuff for myself. And I was writing these letters. They were real letters. And the character I was writing them to was actually named Josh. And so the original story was called Dear Josh. And they were all stacked together. They were sealed, but they were not going to be delivered to anyone named Josh in real life. And then because of tumultuous relationship, marriage, and moving around, the envelopes disappeared. I lost them. They just went missing. I think they got opened even, right? But they got chucked in the garbage, not read by anybody. So I never got to keep the stacked envelopes in real life, or I would use those stacked envelopes in real life with the making of this story. So because I didn't get to open those envelopes and we didn't get to read through them, and I didn't get to write a different story called Dear Josh as a full movie, I got blessed by Nora Ephron and Jean Stapleton to recalibrate all of that love and create this version of another story of Joe Fox and Kathleen Kelly, which I'm sure Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks will fight with me about still calling You've Got Mail too. So my hope and glory is that we can start promoting this movie using the picture inside of the new couple that are between Vancouver and Winnipeg, and put that on the mail trucks. I will try to put that picture in the back of this when it's done. I have already read the entire Smallville Reunion movie, book 1, in video clips on my YouTube channel. So that's why today was not about that one. That one I don't need to start in the summertime. That one is based around a fall season. And that was just a big fall from grace. There's a massive hiccup there. It's 5 years. So that's a sore spot for me. I just thought people would be coming after the Superwoman and asking for autographs and wanting to take pictures. And I get to go out on tour and people asking me questions about the inspiration behind the characters and all that information, which goes all the way back to when the show was still running and I was writing small episodes that I had hoped I would get to make in the TV show and get guest appearances on the show when I was living here in BC up north and was single and had not had my second child, and my health was still good and I still looked pretty good. But none of that happened, right? And the show came to an end, and then I decided to start looking for new areas to shoot new pilots for promising episodes of work that I had done in new places. And again, that didn't happen. And so I ended up writing You've Got Mail 2 and working on the Supergirl trilogy, which both got finished first before the Smallville movie got finished. The Smallville movie became a movie in 2016 when I finished the trilogy, Supergirl 2, 3, and 4, because it had been so many years since the Smallville TV show ended. And so there was no other way of doing the TV show at that point in time, and all the changes in everyone's lives and people passing away. But I didn't lose faith in the characters. Clark lives with me. He is with me. Superman is not dead. Superheroes are not dead. Anybody that works for the man upstairs, the creator of all things, we all have jobs as long as he's giving us jobs. And so I'm very happy. It's good work, and I do look forward to doing the animation and recording it. And so what I'm saying is people who want to do the voice work for what I just read with me, so I can do this again, because we're going to have to do it again and again and again until it's perfected, until it's all done. To get involved with me, I would love to hire postal workers, people in the library, in the community. I'm maybe going to pin one of these here at the Vancouver Public Library on the board. I'm definitely going to the board meeting. I'm going to keep sending out letters, emails. I'm going to print off the Premier's letter. I'm going to finish my little corrections, and then I'm going to send that out, and I'm going to try sending out a package to the White House to try and get this stuff to Donald Trump in time for February. If Donald Trump can reach me, find my YouTube channel, or find the mail and find the movies, and we can meet in time for February, then I don't think anybody will have to worry about any tariffs or any other problems, because there'll be lots of work for everybody and everyone will be happy because there'll be lots of money to make and lots of products and lots of good superhero stuff going on. The reason I did the superhero stuff for here in Canada, as I close this with you guys, is kind of part of why I created Bobby and why I brought him, is that Canada's crime is out of control. It may have once been a beautiful place. It may have once been a safe haven, a place to raise kids. But there's lots that people outside of our country do not know about Canada. So I'm going to see if I can get it to see. What is that, Bobby?
It's my Highway of Tears t-shirt. Highwayoftears.ca.
So there's lots of missing and murdered women where their crimes were not solved. And recently I learned it's even worse than just the Highway of Tears and just the disappearances in the last 10 years, 12 years that I was writing my movies and living up north really took its toll on me. On the back of my Highway of Tears t-shirt, there's still one girl left that they have not found. For the newest ones that I had been tracking, Abigail Andrews, she was only like 19, 20 years old, and she was 3 months pregnant. And she left Fort St. John, which is where my daughter, the youngest one, who's now 15, was born, where I was working on site at the hospital doing security and contract, where she was born. And then we were in the hospital that was there at the time. So I realized my daughter was born to replace Abigail Andrews' child, that I was really close, right on the money, on the tail end of it. But there's these two girls whose skulls were found on the highway, Highway 16, just outside of Edmonton, West Edmonton Mall. And my hope had been to reach Steven Seagal and get some of those major stars to come and help me with outside extra sources of military, FBI, police forces, and, bone diggers, investigators, and see if we can do more to help take the load off of how bad it is here. So recently I learned there's 340,000 unsolved murders across the mainstream of Canada. And then add to that the Highway of Tears girls, and then add to that the people from before they were really keeping track publicly. The one I found, the oldest one I found publicly noted, was in the Gazette in the Maritimes back in the 40s, where it was a 14-year-old boy. And so I did many years of research on all of this. And so my mind is just tired out because it's just full of crime, and I'm scared, and it hurts me because there's lots of good people and they've lost family members that were good people. And so I'm like, it's time to do something. And sort of gave birth to Future Productions, and Superwoman because somebody has to save the day on this side. So, a bird, it's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superwoman! So I'm still hoping to do the Superman costume, and I'm still hoping to get together with other superheroes. And so that's my thing. Let's fight for a better future for all of us. Let's make this year the best year ever. Thank you for watching me and Bobby try to do this teleprompting thing for the first time. It didn't work.
No, it definitely didn't work. And Howie, if you're out there, we need to make a movie about me and Jennifer going to see the world.
So, yeah, Bobby and me want to go on a real-world adventure, and we need Howie Mandel. So, Howie, if you see this, get in touch with us. Yeah, so youtube.com/IamJustJen, FutureProductionsOnline.com, and wherever you see advertisements and stuff, hopefully soon, you will be able to contact us through that as well. Bobby and me are tired of living in the Superman van, moving back and forth, which I cannot drive because of vandalism, cost I can't replace can't restore. It's sitting and I'm paying for parking in Toronto while I'm in Vancouver with him. So I don't like the idea of going to the White House to reach Donald Trump in February on my own, not driving up to the gate like I said earlier in this. It would kind of not be fun to do that way. It would suck to be standing there with a computer bag on your shoulder, waving at him in Superwoman clothes on the ground at foot. I do drive. I do have a driver's license. I am a good driver. So that's the other part that's disheartening about what happened around dishonesty, which is why I write stories about honesty, because honesty is the best policy. And dishonesty hurts people, especially good people who don't do anything wrong to hurt anybody else. So I'm kind of looking forward for that truth to come out and for all of that stuff to work itself out. I do look forward to people volunteering to help to do as much of this as possible so I can make back time and money and so that there's some gratitude and, some, making amends, closure for everybody so we can all go on with our lives. Okay, so we're going to go now. I got to get this onto an SD card, and then I got to do some editing. Bye. Say bye, Bobby.
Bye. Yeah, the teleprompting thing did not work. Howie, we need your help.
Definitely need an intern. Who can hold a computer bag that carries two 17-inch laptops and lots of equipment in it?